yourself with that director last week, like you weren't actually scared of him, just performing scared.
Okay.
He set the trash bin down slowly. Talia, he said, there's something I need to tell you, and I don't have very much time to tell it. Okay, she said, her voice careful now, sensing the shift in the air. I'm not who you think I am, he said. My name is Woo-suk. That part's true. But my full name is Woo-suk Ryu. She stared at him, the name settling into the space between them like something heavy dropped from a height. Ryu, she repeated slowly. As in the company, he said. As in Ryu Dongwook is my father, and I'm supposed to run this entire building someday. In an hour, I'm going to walk into a conference room in a suit, and everyone in this building is going to find out at the same time you're finding out right now.
The tabs you open here are also here. Choose Chrome to share tabs across devices.
Get ready to turn left. Turn left. Get ready to turn left. Turn right. Never mind. I'll find a new route.
Talia stood up slowly, her expression cycling through something he couldn't fully read. You're serious, she said. This isn't some kind of joke. I wish it were, he said. It would be easier to
straight on.
explain. Why? She said, her voice rising slightly. Why would you do this? Because I wanted to know if someone could care about me without knowing any of that, he said. Because every relationship I've ever had fell apart the moment a woman found out what my name was worth. I wanted 3 months where nobody looked at me and saw money. And you decided the way to find that out was to lie to an entire building, she said. To lie to me for 11 weeks. I didn't lie about who I am as a person, he said quickly. Everything you know about me, that part's real. Except the biggest thing, she said, her voice shaking now, somewhere between anger and hurt. Except for the one detail that changes everything about what any of this even was. Talia, please listen, he started. I have to go, she said, gathering her things, her hands not quite steady. I have a meeting at noon I apparently need to be at now, for reasons I'm only just understanding. She left him standing there with an empty trash bin and a feeling like something had cracked straight down the center of his chest. The conference room filled slowly at noon, Saren arriving first, dressed as though this might finally be the introduction to Madame Ryu's son she'd been quietly expecting for weeks. Somin arriving shortly after, composed as always, and Yunbi last. Her expression carefully arranged, though something uneasy flickered beneath it. The particular unease of someone who has just realized their theory was correct and is no longer sure that being right is going to feel good. Madame Ryu's son must finally be back, Saren whispered to Yunbi as they took their seats. About time. The door opened. Dongwook entered first, and behind him walked a man in a tailored dark suit, hair neatly combed, posture entirely different from the careful, slightly hunched way he had carried himself for 11 weeks. Saren's mouth fell open. That's... she started, then stopped. Good afternoon, Dongwook said, his voice carrying the same authority it always did. Some of you have already begun to suspect what I'm about to confirm. This is my son, Woo-suk Ryu. He has spent the last 11 weeks working in this building's maintenance department, under his own first name but without our family name attached, at his own request, and against my initial judgment. The silence was absolute. Somin spoke first, quiet but steady. Was this some kind of test? It wasn't a test I designed, Dongwook said. It was one my son designed for himself. Woo-suk stepped forward. I wanted to know how people in this company treat someone they believe has nothing to offer them, he said. Whether kindness in this building exists without an audience or only in front of one. Saren had gone pale, silently reconstructing 11 weeks of interactions, and the tea spilled twice. The you people. The cleaner boy she'd snapped her fingers at without a second thought. But it was Saren, not Yoonbi, who recovered first, and recovered with something closer to fight than either of them expected. "Well," she said, standing abruptly, straightening her blazer with hands that were not quite steady. "This is certainly dramatic." She turned toward Dongwook directly, bypassing Woo-suk entirely. "Chairman, with respect, if this were your son's experiment, then surely any conduct that occurred during it happened under pretenses on his part. He deliberately deceived staff into treating him as someone he wasn't. I'd argue that puts the responsibility for any misunderstandings squarely on the person who orchestrated the deception, not on the employees who reacted honestly to what they believed was in front of them." The room went quiet in a different way this time, several people visibly reconsidering whether she had a point. Dongwook's expression did not change. "Miss Kwan," he said evenly, "my son's methods can certainly be debated, but nothing about his methods required you to pour tea on a man's hands twice, or call him you people in a lobby full of witnesses. Those choices were entirely your own, regardless of who he turned out to be." Saren's composure cracked slightly, color rising in her cheeks. "That's..." she started, then stopped, recalculating. "I spoke sharply, perhaps," she said, her voice tightening into something more careful. "I'll admit that, but I'd remind everyone in this room that I have generated more client revenue this year than anyone else in public relations. Whatever happened with a member of the cleaning staff, and I did not know who he was, has no bearing on my actual value to this company." "Your value to this company," Dongwook said quietly, "has never been in question, Miss Kwan. Your character, however, now is. Those are not the same thing, and I would ask you to understand the difference before you say anything further in this room." Saren opened her mouth again, then closed it, something in her father's warning finally landing. She sat back down slowly, jaw tight, eyes bright with something that was not quite tears and not quite fury. Yoonbi finally spoke, her voice soft, careful. "I never insulted him," she said. "I was always polite. You were curious about my identity for reasons that had nothing to do with a genuine interest in me," Woo-suk said. "You investigated me the way you'd investigate a business opportunity. That's not kindness, Yoonbi. That's strategy."
ウマ娘新シナリオ。ウマ娘たちがファンに感謝を伝えられる場所を。私はただ輝いている姿が見たかった。このライブで夢をつなぎたい。グランドライブ開幕。キャンペーン中。
And then turn right. Turn right.
"I did what any careful person would do when something didn't add up," Yoonbi said, a flicker of defensiveness entering her voice for the first time. "I brought my concerns to the appropriate people instead of spreading rumors. I don't think that's a character flaw. I think that's diligence." "It might have been diligence," Woo-suk said, "if you'd brought it to me instead of building a file behind my back." Yoonbi had no answer for that. Somin, who had remained quiet throughout, finally spoke.
Keep right.
"I
and
never
then
mistreated
exit
you,"
right.
she said. "I was always polite as well." "You were," Woo-suk agreed.
Exit right.
"But you also never once saw me. I was furniture to you, just as I was to most of this floor.
Go straight
That's
on.
not cruelty, but it's not what my father hoped I'd find here either." The door opened once more, and Talia stepped in, having been asked to join by Ms. Che. She stopped just inside the doorway, taking in the suit, the posture, Dong-wook standing beside him with unmistakable authority. "So it's all true," she said softly.
Right.
"It's all true," Woo-suk confirmed. Saren, recovering some of her composure, turned sharply toward Talia, seizing the shift in attention like a lifeline. "You knew," she said. "You knew this whole time and said nothing. I found out an hour ago," Talia said evenly. "Same as you're finding out right now." Saren's eyes narrowed. "Well," she said, straightening again, "this changes things considerably, doesn't it? Because from where I'm sitting, the woman who's been following him around this building for weeks now suddenly looks a great deal more calculating than I ever did." "That's not fair," Woo-suk said sharply. "Isn't it?" Saren pressed. She spent 11 weeks getting close to a man she thought had nothing. Now it turns out he's worth billions. Forgive me if I find the timing of everyone's outrage a little selective. Talia's arms crossed. "I didn't know," she said, her voice steady despite the accusation. "That's the entire point you're missing." "Convenient," Saren said. "That's enough,"
Left.
Dong-wook said, his voice cutting through the room with quiet finality. "Miss Kwon, I believe your position in this company requires a level of judgment and discretion when representing us publicly. What has occurred today concerns me deeply, and I think it is best you return to your office while Human Resources reviews the matter properly." Saren's mouth opened once more, some final argument half-formed, before she seemed to recognize, all at once, that there was no version of this conversation she could still win. She gathered her things with as much dignity as she could manage and left the room without another word, though the sharp click of her heels down the hallway afterward suggested the fight in her had not entirely gone quiet, only postponed. Yoonbi followed shortly after, her earlier calculations having failed to account for the one variable she could never have controlled. That character reveals itself long before anyone announces who is actually in the
And then
room.
Exit right.
Somin remained a moment longer. "For what it's worth," she said to Woo-suk, "I hope you
Exit
find
right.
whatever you were looking for. I don't think I was ever going to be it, and I think I always knew that, somewhere." "Thank you for being honest about that," Woo-suk said, and meant it. That left only Talia, standing near the doorway,
ready to turn
arms
left.
still crossed, her expression unreadable. "And you," Woo-suk said quietly. "You never knew any of this, and you treated me like I mattered anyway. Every
Turn
single
left.
day, for 11 weeks, with absolutely nothing to gain from it. That doesn't erase the fact that you lied to me," she said, though her voice had lost some of its earlier sharpness. "I know," he said. "I'm not asking you to erase it. I'm asking for the chance to earn back whatever trust I damaged." She looked at him for a long moment, then shook her head slowly. "I need time," she said. "Not an hour, not a day. Time." She turned and walked out before he could say anything else. The days that followed were quieter than he expected, and far harder.
We have got to the point where literally anybody can build a fully working app without knowing how to code. This is Base 44. This is a first look at the current industry-leading AI app builder, and you wouldn't believe the kind of apps that people are creating. Smart nutrition apps, inventory trackers, onboarding tools, you name it. And if the only thing stopping me from making the app is the idea, then why not build an app that gives me endless app ideas? So let's make it. Pro tip, I draft the full app spec in ChatGPT, and then I drop the prompt directly into Base 44. It gives me super detailed structure. And here it is. Everything I laid out in detail as it goes. This is pretty awesome, but I want to make it playful. So I'm going to add a swipe left and swipe right interface. The same usability we all know. Now I'm going to add one more feature. So every idea that I favorite will turn into a kickoff prompt to start building the app itself. And that's it. Just come up with your idea, any idea, and Base 44 will do the rest. So go to Base 44 and create apps with your name on it.
I'm the one I made up my mind. I got up to run to the furthest sign. Check my shoes, I've been gone for my chucking on, now the rubber's gone. Like a wrecking ball. Busting through like a wrecking ball. Bang, bang, boom, boom. Chicka boom, chicka boom. Bang, bang, boom,
Talia did not answer his calls. She requested, through Jiyeon, a transfer to a different floor, one that would not require walking past the 10th floor supply closet every morning, and Jiyeon, without asking, Woo-suk first approved it. She needs space, Jiyeon told him when he confronted her about it. Not an obligation. Give it to her. He did, though it cost him more than any single business decision he'd ever made. He did not call. He did not send flowers or gifts, or the kind of grand gestures that came easily to a man with his resources and would have meant, he suspected, almost nothing to a woman who had spent 11 weeks loving him precisely because he had none of that to offer. Instead, 3 weeks later, he simply waited outside her new building one evening in early winter, not in a suit, but in the same worn gray jacket he'd worn during his very first week, disguised as nobody at all. She stepped outside and stopped short at finding him there. "You didn't have to wear that," she said. "I wanted you to know," he said, "that the man underneath it is the same person either way. I'm not asking you to forgive me tonight. I just wanted you to see both versions of me standing in front of you and know I'm not going anywhere, whatever you decide." Talia studied him for a long moment, cold air visible in small clouds between them. "My mama always told me," she said finally, "that the way someone treats people who can't do anything for them tells you everything about their character. I watched you for 11 weeks thinking you had nothing, and you were kind the entire time. That part was never a lie." "No," he said quietly. "That part was the truest thing about me the entire time." "It's going to take a while," she said. "Longer than a nice speech in a parking lot." "I know," he said. "I'm not in a hurry anymore. I spent 11 weeks learning what waiting actually means." She almost smiled at that, the first real crack in her guard since the conference room. "Almost," she said. Over the following months, he proved it in ways smaller and slower than the moment he'd once imagined, showing up not with declarations but with patience, a coffee left quietly at her new desk on hard mornings, a message that asked nothing in return, simply checking that she'd eaten. Slowly, carefully, something that had cracked began piece by piece and to hold together again. It was nearly a year after that first conversation in the lobby, on an ordinary evening with no particular occasion attached to it, that he asked her properly, at the same side entrance where maintenance staff still came and went every morning, the door most executives never noticed at all. "Talia," he said, "will you marry me?" She looked at him for a long moment, then laughed, not because it was funny, but because it finally, fully felt real. "Yes," she said. "Took you long enough to ask somewhere I actually recognized." They married the following spring, her mother flying in from Georgia to stand proudly beside a son-in-law she'd once only heard about through 30-second phone calls describing a quiet new hire on a cleaning crew. Dong-wook gave a short speech at the reception, his voice unusually thick with emotion, and said simply that his son had gone looking for proof that love could exist without a price tag attached, and had somehow, against every likely outcome, found it, lost it briefly, and earned it back the harder, slower, truer way. Saren Kwan resigned 2 months after the reveal. The fight she'd shown in that conference room ultimately not enough to outlast the quiet, constant weight of a reputation that never fully recovered. Yoonbi remained at the company, though quietly moved away from anything involving executive access. Her sharp instincts were never quite trusted again the way they once had been. Years later, when people inside Ryu Holdings told the story of the heir who once mopped their floors under a stranger's uniform, what stayed with them was never the scandal, or the resignations, or even the wedding itself. It was the simpler truth underneath all of it, that the way you treat someone who appears to have nothing to offer you is very often the only honest test of who you truly are, and that even after the truth comes out, love worth keeping is the kind willing to wait quietly and earn its way back, one ordinary day at a time. If this story moved you even a little, don't scroll past it in silence. Hit subscribe right now if you haven't already, because there are more stories just like this one waiting for you, and you deserve to see them. And before you go, drop a comment and tell me honestly, who do you think fought hardest to hold on to their pride in this story? And I also want to know which moment hit you the hardest. See you in the next story.
Where'd your mom buy yours from?
Outgrown your summer favorite? List it on Depop, where taste recognizes taste.
Whose kid is this?
Go straight on.
The judge had already picked up the final page of the verdict. One more sentence. That was all it would take to end the empire of the most feared man in South Korea. The courtroom was packed. Journalists stood shoulder to shoulder. Television cameras pointed toward the defendant's table. Outside, hundreds of reporters waited behind security barriers despite the pouring rain. Across the country, millions watched the trial live. Everyone believed they already knew how it would end. They couldn't have been more wrong. "Your Honor!" A clear female voice echoed through the courtroom. The heavy courtroom doors swung open. Every head turned. A tall black woman stepped inside, wearing a navy blue suit that matched the calm confidence on her face. She carried only one leather folder, nothing else. No assistance, no security, no hesitation. She walked straight down the center aisle as though she belonged there. The room fell completely silent. The judge frowned. This hearing has already concluded. The woman stopped a few feet from the defense table. "I respectfully disagree, Your Honor. If you deliver that verdict today, an innocent man will lose everything." A wave of whispers spread across the courtroom. The lead prosecutor stood immediately. "Your Honor, I object. This woman has no connection to these proceedings." The judge looked toward her. "State your name." She met his eyes without blinking. "My name is Jessica Williams." The name meant nothing to the reporters, nothing to the public, nothing to the prosecution, but at the defense table. Seo Tae-hyun slowly lifted his head. His breathing stopped. The courtroom disappeared around him. For 15 years. He had imagined this moment 1,000 different ways. None of them looked like this. His lips parted slightly. "Jessica?" She heard him. She looked toward him for only a second. Years of silence passed between them in that single glance. She quickly looked away. There would be time for emotions later. Right now, she had come to save his life. "Your Honor,"
Go straight on.
Jessica said calmly, "I request permission to present evidence that was deliberately hidden from this court." The prosecutor laughed. "Hidden? My team has investigated this case for over 2 years. There is nothing left to discover." Jessica opened the leather folder. Without saying another word, she removed one document and placed it before the judge. The judge adjusted his glasses. His expression slowly changed. Then another document, another, and another. The courtroom watched in complete silence. Finally, the judge looked up.
Go straight on.
"Where did you obtain these records?" Jessica answered quietly. "I spent the last 4 years collecting them." The prosecutor's smile disappeared. "What exactly are you trying to prove?" Jessica slowly turned toward him. "I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm here to reveal the truth." She faced the judge again. "The man sitting before this court has many enemies. Some wanted his businesses. Some wanted his influence. But the person responsible for placing him in this courtroom,"
Keep right.
she slowly
and
looked
then
around the
turn
gallery,
right.
"is much closer than anyone realizes."
Turn
Several
right.
people instinctively turned their heads. The atmosphere changed instantly. Someone inside the courtroom was involved. The judge leaned forward. "Counselor Williams, if what you're suggesting is true, why wait until
Get
today?"
ready to turn left.
Jessica took a slow breath. "Because yesterday,
Turn
I was
left.
still missing one piece of evidence." The prosecutor stepped forward. "This is absurd. She's trying to delay justice." Jessica calmly looked at him. "Justice has never been delayed by the truth." The courtroom fell silent again. The judge thought carefully. Finally, he placed the verdict back on the bench. "This court will recess for 30
Get ready
minutes.
to turn left.
When we return, Counselor Williams will present her evidence."
Turn left.
The room erupted. Reporters rushed toward the doors. Television presenters spoke excitedly into their microphones. Outside the courthouse, breaking news alerts spread across the
Get
country.
ready to turn left.
Inside the courtroom,
Turn left.
Seo Tae-hyun remained seated. His eyes never left Jessica. She had changed. The frightened little girl he once found beneath a bridge had become a woman the entire courtroom had stopped to listen to. Yet one question remained. Why now? Why had she returned after 15 years of complete silence? Before he could speak, Jessica quietly
Here we
closed
are,
the leather
safe
folder.
and sound.
She looked toward him for just a moment. The confident lawyer disappeared. In her place stood the little girl who had once looked at him with fear. Then she whispered words only he could hear. "Please trust me." Before he could answer, the bailiff announced the recess. Jessica picked up her folder and walked toward the exit. The reporters rushed after her. Questions filled the hallway. "Miss Williams? Are you related to Seo Tae-hyun? Where have you been all these years? Are you his lawyer?" She answered none of them. She simply kept walking, because if she stopped now, she wasn't sure she could hold back the tears. 15 years earlier, snow covered every corner of Seoul. The freezing wind swept beneath Maple Bridge, where 9-year-old Jessica
Drive safe.
Williams wrapped her thin coat tightly around herself. She had not eaten since the previous morning. She sat quietly beside a small backpack that held everything she owned: a faded photograph, one extra sweater, and a tiny notebook her mother had once given her. She looked toward the road above. Cars passed without slowing. No one looked beneath the bridge. No one knew she was there. Then, the sound of several powerful engines echoed overhead. A convoy of black luxury SUVs came to a smooth stop. The doors opened almost at the same time. Several men stepped out. Each wore a dark suit. Each quietly scanned the surroundings. Finally, one man appeared. He was tall, calm.
Turn left.
His black overcoat moved gently in the winter wind. Dark tattoos disappeared beneath the collar of his shirt before reaching his neck. His face showed no emotion, even without speaking. Everyone around him waited
Get
for his
ready to turn
instructions.
right.
Jessica's heart began beating faster.
Turn right.
She immediately stood. Her small hands tightened around the straps of her backpack. The stranger slowly walked toward her, stopping several feet away. Neither of them spoke. For a long moment, they simply looked at one another. Then he quietly reached into his coat. He removed a thick
Get ready
envelope
to
filled
turn
with
left.
cash and held it toward her. Jessica
left.
looked at the money, then at the tattoos, then back at the money. She slowly shook her head. "I don't want your money," she said. The man looked surprised. She lifted her chin bravely. "If you really want to help me,
Turn left.
please buy me something to eat instead." That single sentence changed 2 lives forever. For the first time in many years, Seo Tae-hyun found himself speechless. People usually wanted his money. Some wanted his influence. Others wanted favors. But the little girl standing before him wanted none of those things. She only wanted a warm meal. He looked at one of his security men. "There's a restaurant still open 3 streets from here." The man nodded. "I know the place. Bring their best soup, fresh bread, hot tea, and fruit. Enough for everyone." Within minutes, warm food arrived beneath the bridge. The smell filled the cold night air. Jessica looked at the bowls of soup before quietly bowing her head. "Thank you," she said. She ate slowly, grateful for every bite. Seo Tae-hyun sat on a nearby bench with a bowl of soup in his hands. He noticed something unusual. The little girl never asked for more. She carefully ate only what she needed, leaving enough for breakfast the following morning. She had already learned what it meant to survive. After dinner, Seo Tae-hyun asked quietly, "Where is your family?" Jessica lowered her eyes. "My parents died." She held her
Keep
backpack
right,
closer.
And then turn
"I've been
right.
alone ever since." The words were simple, yet they carried enough sadness
Turn
to
right.
silence everyone beneath the bridge. One of the security guards quietly turned away. Even he struggled to hide his emotions. Seo Tae-hyun remained calm, But inside, something had changed. He could leave, drive away, forget this night, yet every instinct told him he wouldn't. Later that
Go
evening,
straight on.
he contacted the city's child welfare authorities. "I've found a child without a guardian," he said. "I want everything handled legally." Over the following weeks, social workers, government officials, and family investigators worked together. They searched for relatives. They checked every available record. No immediate family could be found. Finally, after completing every legal requirement, the court approved the adoption. The little girl beneath the bridge officially became part of Seo Tae-hyun's family. The day she entered the mansion, she carried the same small backpack. It contained everything she owned. Mrs. Han welcomed her warmly. From that day forward, she supervised Jessica's education, health, and daily routine. The housekeepers became like aunts. The gardeners taught her the names of flowers.
Go straight on.
The cooks insisted she always ask for a second serving, little by little. The mansion became less frightening, but one thing never changed. Jessica never completely trusted Seo Tae-hyun. Every time he returned home, she noticed the tattoos disappearing beneath his shirt collar. She noticed the serious men who accompanied
straight
him.
on.
She noticed the respect, and sometimes fear, they showed him. In her young mind, tattoos meant danger. Bad people had tattoos. Movies had taught her that. Stories had taught her that. So she quietly reached her own conclusion. My father must be a bad man. She never said those words aloud, but she believed them. Seo Tae-hyun never tried to change her mind. He never defended himself. He never explained his business. Instead, he simply kept showing up. If she had a school performance, he sat quietly in the last row. If she won an academic award, flowers waited in her room before she arrived home. If she became sick, he canceled meetings to make sure she recovered. He never demanded gratitude. He simply remained consistent. Mrs. Han noticed everything. One afternoon, she smiled at Jessica. "Do you know why your father leaves home before sunrise?" Jessica shook her head. "No."
Get ready.
"So
to
he
turn
can have
right.
dinner with you every evening." Jessica looked surprised. "He changes his meetings every day." "So he
Turn
never
right.
misses dinner." Jessica didn't answer, but that night she looked at Seo Tae-hyun a little differently. Only a little. Years passed quietly. The frightened orphan beneath the bridge slowly grew into a confident young woman. She excelled in school, won national debate competitions, graduated at the top of her class, then completed her undergraduate degree with honors. Every achievement filled the mansion with celebration. Mrs. Han proudly displayed every certificate. Seo Tae-hyun never missed a graduation. He always applauded from the back of the room, never drawing attention to himself. He wanted every success to belong to Jessica, not to his name. The evening after her university graduation,
Go
the
straight
mansion
on.
felt unusually peaceful. The celebration had ended. The guests had gone home. Only 3 people remained around the dinner table. Mrs. Han smiled proudly. "I still remember the little girl who wouldn't say a word." Jessica laughed. "I remember hiding bread in my pockets." Mrs. Han laughed with her. "You thought we'd stop feeding you." Jessica smiled warmly. "I wasn't taking chances." Even Seo Tae-hyun chuckled softly. It was one of those rare moments when the entire house felt like a family. Then, Jessica became quiet. She looked toward Seo Tae-hyun. "Father." He looked up. "Yes?" "I've made a decision." His expression became serious. "I'm listening." She folded her hands together. "I want to study law abroad." Mrs. Han stopped pouring tea. The room became silent. Seo Tae-hyun looked at Jessica for several moments. "Have you already chosen where?" She nodded. "London. I've received an offer from one of the best law schools." Mrs. Han smiled. "That's wonderful." Seo Tae-hyun smiled too. "I'm proud of you." Jessica looked surprised. "You don't mind?" He shook his head gently. "I raised you to chase your dreams, not to stay close because it makes me comfortable." Relief filled her face. "Thank you." but inside her heart. Another reason remained hidden. She wanted to leave Korea. She wanted distance. Distance from the whispers, distance from the headlines, distance from the man she loved as a father, yet secretly believed lived in a world she could never accept. She never told him. She couldn't, because despite everything, she didn't want to hurt the man who had never broken a single promise to her. Seo Tae-hyun watched her smile across the table. He believed she was simply excited about her future. He had no idea. His daughter was quietly leaving because she feared the truth about the life he lived, and that misunderstanding would keep them apart for many long years. The morning Jessica left Korea began in complete silence. The mansion, once filled with laughter during her graduation celebration, suddenly felt too large. Mrs. Han stood in the kitchen pretending to organize breakfast. In reality, she had folded the same kitchen towel 3 times. She simply wasn't ready to say goodbye. Upstairs, Jessica zipped the last suitcase. She looked around her bedroom one final time. The books, the photographs, the flowers on the balcony, everything reminded her of home. She gently picked up the framed picture taken on her university graduation day. In the photograph, Mrs. Han stood on one side. Seo Tae-hyun stood on the other. She smiled sadly. "No matter what happens," she whispered to herself, "I'll never forget this family." A few minutes later, she carried her luggage downstairs. Mrs. Han hugged her tightly. "You must eat properly." "I will." "You must sleep." "I'll try." "You must call us." Jessica smiled. "I promise." Mrs. Han laughed through her tears. "You've become such a wonderful woman." Jessica kissed her gently on the cheek. "I learned from the best." Outside, the black sedan waited quietly. Seo Tae-hyun placed her suitcase inside the trunk himself. The driver reached for it. "I'll do it," Seo Tae-hyun said. The driver respectfully stepped back. Jessica noticed. He had always done the little things himself whenever it involved her. She had never understood why. The drive to the airport was unusually quiet. Neither of them wanted to spoil the moment with unnecessary words. As they approached the terminal, Seo Tae-hyun reached into his coat pocket. He handed Jessica a small velvet box. "I almost forgot." She looked surprised. "You already gave me graduation gifts." "This one is different." She slowly opened it. Inside rested an elegant silver fountain pen. Its design was simple, beautiful. On one side were carefully engraved words. "Truth always finds its way." Jessica smiled. "It's beautiful." "It belonged to my father," Seo Tae-hyun said. "He believed that no lie could survive forever." She carefully held the pen. "I'll use it every day." "I hope you do." She closed the box gently. "I'll treasure it." Moments later, boarding was announced. Passengers slowly formed a line. Jessica looked toward Seo Tae-hyun. For the first time in years, she stepped forward and hugged him. It wasn't a long embrace, but it was enough. "I'm going to make you proud," she said. Seo Tae-hyun smiled. "You already have." She looked into his eyes. "I'll come back when I've become the lawyer I dream of becoming." "I'll be waiting." She nodded, then walked toward the departure gate. She never looked back, not because she didn't want to, because she knew if she did, she might never leave. Hours later, London welcomed her with gray skies and gentle rain. Everything felt unfamiliar. The streets, the buildings, the accents, even the air smelled different. For the first time since she was adopted. She truly stood on her own. She smiled quietly. "This is where my future begins." The following weeks passed quickly. University demanded everything she had. Long lectures, research, endless reading, court simulations. While many students spent evenings exploring the city, Jessica remained inside the library until security announced closing time. Her professors noticed. One afternoon, Professor William Carter stopped beside her desk. "You've been here every evening this month." Jessica smiled politely. "I still have a lot to learn." He looked at the thick pile of books. "Most students think they already know enough." She closed her notebook. My father taught me something. What was that? The day you stop learning is the day you stop growing. Professor Carter smiled. He sounds like a wise man. Jessica looked down. He is. Even after moving thousands of miles away, she still couldn't bring herself to tell anyone who her father really was. Whenever classmates asked, she always gave the same answer. My father is a businessman from Korea. Nothing more, nothing less. 3 years passed. Jessica graduated at the top of her class. Her name appeared on the university's honor board. Several prestigious law firms competed to recruit her. In the end, she accepted an offer from one of London's most respected litigation firms. The senior partner shook her hand. Welcome to Blackwood and Mason. We've heard remarkable things about you, Jessica smiled. I'll do my best. You already have. Within 2 years, her reputation spread throughout London's legal community. She remained calm under pressure. She never raised her voice inside a courtroom. She prepared every case with extraordinary detail. Judges respected her. Clients trusted her. Even opposing lawyers admired her professionalism. Newspapers began referring to her as the woman who never lost her composure. Her career continued rising, but so did the number of powerful people seeking her legal expertise. One rainy afternoon, her assistant entered her office. You have another appointment. Jessica looked up from her files. I thought my schedule was clear. It was. He insisted. Who? Her assistant hesitated. A businessman from Korea. I've never met him. He said you'll want to. Jessica closed the file in front of her. Send him in. A moment later, the office door opened. A tall Korean man entered wearing a perfectly tailored black suit. His movements were calm, confident. His dark eyes quietly studied the room before settling on Jessica. She immediately noticed the faint tattoo disappearing beneath the collar of his white shirt. Her smile faded. Not again. The man extended his hand. Kang Do-jin. She didn't shake it immediately. Instead, she looked at the tattoo, then back at him. You've come to the wrong office. He raised an eyebrow. I don't believe I have. I don't represent organized crime. A faint smile crossed his face. I wasn't asking you to. She folded her arms. Then why are you here? He calmly withdrew his hand. I've been falsely accused of financial fraud. I need a lawyer. She looked directly into his eyes. I think you need someone else. He remained surprisingly relaxed. Why? Because I choose my clients carefully. So do I, he replied. The room became quiet. For several long seconds, neither looked away. Finally, Jessica spoke. I know men like you. His expression remained unchanged. Do you? She glanced once more toward the tattoo beneath his collar. I've spent my entire life trying to stay away from your world. Without another word, she walked to the office door and opened it. Our meeting is over. Kang Do-jin looked at her for a brief moment. Instead of arguing, he smiled politely. I have a feeling this won't be our last conversation, she answered firmly. It will. He inclined his head respectfully before leaving. The office became quiet again. Jessica closed the door and returned to her desk. She looked out the rain-covered window. Why had seeing those tattoos unsettled her so much? Why did Kang Do-jin remind her of the one person she had spent years trying not to think about? Far below, Kang Do-jin stepped into his waiting car. His bodyguard looked at him curiously. Did she accept the case? He smiled as he watched Jessica's office window high above the street. No. The bodyguard sighed. So that's the end of it? Kang Do-jin shook his head. No. I've just met the most interesting woman in London. As the car disappeared into the evening traffic, neither of them realized. That meeting would change both of their lives, and somewhere far away in Seoul, Seo